everyone. Greetings. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to the Steve Deace Show here, live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast alongside Todd Erzen, Aaron McIntyre. I'm Steve Deace. We're brought to you by our friends over at Jace Medical. Yes, you have a right to medical freedom, but like every other right, if you don't exercise it, is it really a right? One way that you can exercise your right to medical freedom right now is to give yourself the peace of mind of knowing that you took it upon yourself to know that just in case, that could never happen here, happens again and again and again, and it keeps happening, as we keep saying, that you've got a backup of some of the most important antibiotics in all of human history. You've got that, but then you can also take the Jace case and expand it to their ever-increasing menu of customizable options as well. So if you've got a specific need, like for me during this time of year, I got to have an EpiPen close by. You never know. My wife and I out on our evening walk just the other day, I kid you not, I think I forgot to tell you guys this. She is standing right next to me out on our evening walk, and B just comes up and stings her in the back of the neck, 2 feet from me. So we were 2 feet from needing an EpiPen or my wife just having a bad owie. All right. So if that's you, you've got specific needs in your family. You can expand it with customizable options as well. Just use my last name, Deace, as your promo code when you go to jace.com, J-A-S-E. Promo code Deace at J-A-S-E. Promo code Deace for the discount at jace.com. And then I also want to let you know about the new magazine that we debuted earlier this year here at The Blaze. I don't know if you guys have seen the new issue. They're out in our new break room for Frontier. And I would think for you as an old print guy, it's almost like revolutionary now to hold something in your hand and read it for a change. It's not an electronic device, right?
We need to go back.
I know. This is another one of your things that we have to go back on multiple fronts, according to Todd, right? Well, if you want to go back and discover kind of that frontier spirit that made America, you can get that with a subscription to Blaze Unlimited. It's more than just your ticket to Frontier. You'll get early access to exclusive events, VIP treatment, members-only content, and a premium experience built for people who want to take their membership with the Blaze, their relationship with us even deeper, if you want to do that. So go to blazeunlimited.com/Deace right now. That's blazeunlimited.com/Deace. And the first 50 subscribers who use the code BLAZE50 will get $40 off and receive special bonuses, digital access to Frontier issues 1 and 2, so you can complete the story from the start. That's blazeunlimited.com/Deace. Promo code BLAZE50. Promo code BLAZE50 at blazeunlimited.com/Deace. All right, we are going to today preview an upcoming film breaking down and deconstructing the scamdemic. We're going to preview that for you at the bottom of the hour. Daniel Horowitz will join us for his weekly stop by the show. I want to get his reaction. I had Daniel listen to Brent Buchanan, one of the president's pollsters, on the show yesterday, because I think there are several things that Brent said that would affirm many of the laments that Daniel has currently as well. So there would be some data to line up with Daniel's analysis and read. We'll get his take on that later. And then we'll play, of course, on a Wednesday. You know we have to play some buy, sell, or hold, and we'll get to as many of those as we can. And what remains, we'll do in the overtime for Blaze TV subscribers. But let's kick it all off, as we always do, with Aaron's rundown of what happened while we were away.
What happened while we were away, brought to you by more on the D.C. crackdown. The White House says the homeless population in the nation's capital has a choice.
Homeless individuals will be given the option to leave their encampment, to be taken to a homeless shelter, to be offered addiction or mental health services, and if they refuse, they will be susceptible to fines or to jail time.
Of course, lefties lost their mind over that utterly humane and decisive way of handling the homeless population. But as Caroline Levitt reminded us, what she just laid out are laws already on the books in D.C. that have not been enforced. U.S. Attorney for D.C. Jeanine Pirro had enough with this reporter who said crime is actually down in D.C.
It's never enough. This changed. It's never enough. You tell these families crime has dropped. You tell the mother of the intern who was shot going out from McDonald's near the Washington Convention Center, crime is down. You tell the kid who was just beat the hell and back with a severe concussion and a broken nose, crime is down. No, that falls on deaf ears, and my ears are deaf to that. And that's why I fight the fight.
And now a hodgepodge of news of note from around the country. The Texas Democrats who fled the state to avoid redistricting votes have decided to return. According to multiple sources that spoke to KTRK TV in Texas, Republicans had threatened to cut off their paychecks and even vacate their seats if they didn't return to allow a quorum and proceed with official business. Democrats have been trying to shut down the approval of a redistricting map that would likely vaporize 5 Democrat congressional seats. Los Angeles, California Mayor Karen Bass says the city has formalized an organized force to protect illegals from ICE deportation raids.
Can local officials establish any sort of limiting factor? What do you think is the most valuable pushback against things like this for people who object to it?
Well, I can tell you when they were doing the random snatching or kidnappings of people off of our streets, when people gathered, they backed away on many occasions. And so in Los Angeles, we have a rapid response network where everybody is alerted. If you see masked men getting out of unmarked cars, let everybody in the area know.
In a decently significant legal decision handed down in federal court on Tuesday, a Long Island high school student has been granted a medical exemption from a New York state vaccine requirement, allowing her to attend school this fall without receiving the 3rd dose of the hepatitis B vaccine. The ruling came just weeks before the 16-year-old junior was at risk of being denied entry to Oceanside High School. A federal judge ordered the Oceanside School District to accept the exemption based on the recommendation of the student's personal physician, who determined that an adverse reaction to a previous dose meant she could not receive the 3rd dose. In Cincinnati, leaders in the so-called black community are pushing for the prosecution of the white individuals who were brutalized in that Friday night attack a couple of weeks ago.
6 individuals were charged with aggravated assault, which is a felony. The white guy incited or urged 6 other people to commit a felony.
The method by which this situation has been handled raises serious questions as to whether there's bias involved in the investigation. It also brings into question the possibility of a lack of integrity and whether there's something else to hide.
An Iowa mother is allegedly being targeted after speaking out at her school board meeting about BLM content being taught to her 12-year-old son. Elaine Castellans, a recently naturalized citizen from the Dominican Republic, told the Daily Caller her son was shown a graphic PG-13 movie without parental notification or consent in violation of state law, and subsequent classroom discussions revolved around BLM and alleged police brutality. When the mother voiced her concerns to the school, she was met with a cease and desist letter accusing her of defamation and threatening a lawsuit. In Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis swore in State Senator Jay Collins to serve as the state's new lieutenant governor. Collins is a former Green Beret who lost his leg in combat, and Florida now becomes the only state to have veterans serving in both the governor and lieutenant governor positions. And finally, this from the Babylon Bee. Jerome Powell says he won't lower interest rates until he can be sure it won't help Trump. And that's what happened while we were away.
That's not a parody. You know I love me some Babylon Bee. Love the guys there. Okay. Seth, Joel, Jarrett, love those guys. Okay. But that is our literal analysis.
Yes.
All right. With all due respect, I mean, we have been chasing after the greatness that is the Babylon Bee for almost a decade on this show. How many times have you guys heard me say, when I grow up, I want to work at the Babylon Bee, right? Okay. But this is one time I think we were ahead of them. That has been my literal analysis for a couple months on this show.
Indeed.
And they're turning that into parody, but that's actual real news, I think. Aaron's Montage brought to you by our friends over at Birch Gold. Speaking of the ongoing fracas between the Trump administration and the Federal Reserve, you never know what that could do to destabilize things all the more. So that's, again, why you want to contact our friends over at Birch Gold Group. For centuries, really, gold has been viewed as a safe haven in these kinds of times of disturbance and disruption, whether it's good for you or not. So make sure that you're protected. It's incredibly easy for you to diversify some of your savings into gold if you have an IRA or an old 401k. You can convert that into a tax-sheltered now IRA and physical gold, or you can just buy some physical gold and keep it in your safe. So, but first, get educated. No information or no obligation, just information. All right. When you text Steve to 989898, get your free info kit on gold from our good friends at Birch Gold Group. That's text Steve to the number 989898. Just text that and get started. Text Steve to 989898. Get that free info kit on gold so you can learn more yourself by texting Steve to 989898. All right. Couple of questions I have for you two here this morning in response to Aaron's montage. We've been pretty hard on Texas. But understand, I mean, we're pretty hard on Texas the way, you know, a coach would be hard on a star player. You know what I'm saying? Because he just knows he should be able to take it. He knows what his actual ceiling and potential is, right? Coach isn't yelling at, the fourth string quarterback. Why are you? He's fourth string. All right. Clearly he's not good enough. That's why he's fourth string. And so you coach that kid a little differently, right? Okay. So we've been hard on Texas because we know what they're supposed to be. We know who you are, what your history is, your lineage is, your legacy is. And in the last decade, Texas has gone from my relocation mistress, where the minute the Blaze would have called and said, all right, we want you to make the move, I would have said yes, to now the Blaze builds me a new space in Iowa. All right? Because we're freer here. We're more aggressive here, which I did not anticipate was going to be the case, but that has become the case in the last few years. All right? So it's been, you can be better than this. All right? So with that said then, Texas Democrats return. The Texas Senate has approved a new map that would grant 5 additional congressional districts out of the state of Texas to Republicans. Did Texas Republicans win? Did they win this?
Oh. Yes, but not the way they should have.
Explain.
So it's like when you've got a team, to use your sports analogy, that is probably one of the best teams out there. They go out there and just basically throw their helmets out there in a big game, like an important game. But they had several false starts, several holding penalties, just a lack of focus, a lack of resolve, and they just won on pure talent. You won, but are you really confident in this team going forward that they're going to be able to meet their ceiling? No.
All right, see, that's the thing for people that don't get our sports analogy, right? The old Nick Saban thing, it's about the process. That's what you're saying, right?
Yes.
Maybe because of superior, in the political case, the superior infrastructure Texas Republicans have to Democrats. You did win, but your concern is because of the way they won, this is not something that can be replicated or repeated later on.
Or if they try to, it's going to blow up in their face.
Yes, they didn't follow a formula or a process. They just used the structural advantages they had to their advantage for a change, and that was good enough.
Big Ten Network had it on in the studio before the show started. It was the Woodshed, Iowa-Ohio State game. You're going to be, if you're in Ohio State and you don't really practice hard, you don't put all the things together, you're going to run into a snake pit like Iowa back in 2018, 2017, whenever that was, and get taken to the woodshed.
All right, so Aaron is saying it is a win for Texas Republicans for sure, but he's concerned that the way they went about it is not conducive to a lot of future success, that they just overwhelmed them with the infrastructure advantages they had, the talent advantage, so to speak, in this particular conflict. What do you think, Todd?
That may be true, but it depends on a more important realization. If all they did was put up a notch on the bedpost that is basically shirts versus skins that can basically be compared to a win of 20 years ago, Aaron will be absolutely right. If they did this, and there's multiple ways to skin a cat because they realize fundamentally these are orcs. And civilization is at stake. And this time we chose this way. Maybe we'll choose a different way. But no matter what, we're going to win. That's the ball game, the psychology of this for people. Because I was thinking while watching that montage of the movie 300, and I love how he was the guy who also who did Super.
Zack Snyder. Yep.
How the Persians were painted as like half-breed, like lobster people, because he wanted you to see the cost of the moral de-evolution of a society, the light versus the dark. That's what we're dealing with. So if Texas has figured that part out, I can live with a lot of negotiating around the edges. If they haven't figured that out, Aaron will be absolutely right.
I think you're both right, actually. See, I think they did figure that out. And because they have not actually they don't have a process in place. I mean, they're still doing like a timeshare of leadership, I have no clue how it is Democrats have like positions of leadership in the Texas state legislature, despite the fact they're a distinct minority. I mean, Republicans don't have a process in place in Texas. And to be what the rest of Red America thinks Texas ought to be. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think Aaron is correct, but I also don't think they had another way that they could win right now because of how weak and effeminate, but I repeat myself, they have been for so long that they maybe had to win something on instinct first. That's kind of what you're describing, Aaron. They kind of just had to win it on instinct first to then realize, wait, this can happen. We can do this. We can actually have, and we can have gallon hats that, have something in them rather than being all hat, no cattle. We can, we don't have to make, Sam Houston ashamed from the grave every time one of us, rolls out in front of a microphone. Because they were just getting mocked by Jasmine Crockett just a few days ago. Yeah. And I was like, listen, everything she said about how I can't stand the chick, but everything she said about how Texas Republicans have rolled in the past, all right, all hat, no cattle, right, all bark, no bite, is accurate. So they did get a win here. I think we should acknowledge that. It's a significant win. And I think that at this point right now, if you're in a red state, gerrymander everything but your mom. And then ask your mom if she's okay with it. Just gerrymander everything.
Yeah.
Just gerrymander everything you possibly can. The state, they're going to do the same thing. They've already done it. There's not much left for them to gerrymander in these blue states. They've been doing it that's J.D. Vance's point. They've been doing this for 20 years. Right?
Is that another way of saying your mom is so fat she's her own congressional district?
Well, my mom is a little bitty thing, and you look at me like, how did you come out of that? But no,
I was not about
necessarily.
Your mom. I'm just saying in general.
Yes. So, but I love that, by the way. I'm always down for a good your mom joke. But to me, they've done this. You and I were just having the conversation off the air. 40% of Connecticut still votes Republican, and they have no district.
Yeah.
40% of California still votes Republican, right? So they've already done this a lot.
Right.
So there's not much left for them to gerrymander, frankly. What we need to do is actually catch up to what they have done. We need to make it inconceivable there could be a Democrat elected from into Congress from almost every one of our red states. Unless it's a state as vast as a Texas where the population is so vast that you just couldn't, we have several Republican members of Congress in California, for example, all right? But how many do you have in Washington State? How many do you have in Oregon? How many do you have in Connecticut? In those places. And that's what we need to do in our red places.
If you're our top player, Texas, for a long time, though, we remind you that, horns up. And we say, no, they're at best, they're sideways. And you give us all your LeBron James, load management and flopping and excuses, but I'm still the best. No, we don't want LeBron James. We want Michael Jordan. And I took that personally. And we want you to just go out there because you can and score 50 again and again and again. Texas, if you want to wear that big hat, wear it. And we'll be all sitting there going.
Absolutely. We want Texas to be Texas.
Yes.
Or we want to look at Texas and say, we are not worthy.
Yes.
I would love for Texas to be my relocation mistress again, because it would mean they did some of the things that you're talking about. That being said, this is a win. It is a big win. But here's the thing also, it cannot be an isolated circumstance. All right. But any coach would tell you they'd rather have things to complain about after a win than after a loss, because the number one goal of any game is to do what? Is to win it. All right. So this was a win. All right. Second question I have for you guys. And this was not on my docket. The first question was, because I assumed Aaron was going to mention something about it in the montage. The second question came to me while watching Aaron's montage. All right. And I just jotted it down here on my laptop so I would remember it. Should Trump offer federal help? Let's go with that term. Maybe that's, in fact, let's focus group that. Let's use that term. Let's not use the term nationalize your police force. Let's not use that term. Let's offer like what they did. This is no longer, we're not taxing and spending. These are investments, right? Okay. Should Trump offer federal help? Are you okay with that euphemism?
I think so.
All right. Should Trump offer federal help to leading blue cities in key swing states between now and the midterms to make the Democrats there say no? so that you can then turn right around and run those ads in all of those swing districts in those states and say, see, this stuff, because they won't contain it in their own cities, it's coming to your suburb. It's coming to your exurb. I tried to help. Look how we've cleaned up DC. I offered them help, and they didn't want it. They hated me more than they wanted to protect you. Because to me, I think that is a line for the next midterm that could be as potent as the best campaign line either side had in the last election was the Trump ad. Kamala Harris is for they, them. Trump is for you. That, dude, the first time I saw that, I was like, now that will preach right there. All right. I mean, I set up my chair. I saw that ad during a football game last fall for the first time. And I mean, I sat up in my chair and I said, whoa. Now that is some next level messaging right there. That is how you capture a zeitgeist right there. Kamala Harris is for they, them, and Trump is for you. Similarly, Democrats hate Trump more than they want to protect you. What do you think of that as a strategy? Because they're all going to say no, and they're all going to turn it down. Make formal offers. The president making a direct ask to each of these mayors in Michigan and Pennsylvania, North Carolina, all these places with all these swing districts, right? I made the ask. They all said no.
I think it's a good strategy, but it hinges on the success of Washington, D.C.
Agreed.
This can't be. We complained a lot during the first Trump administration about how he would send out a strongly worded tweet that then would absolutely go nowhere. It wouldn't be enforced in whatever department, trans in the military, for example. Now he's been so different on so many levels, so I'm not doubting that he's going to follow through, but he has got to follow through. It has to be a demonstrable difference in Washington, D.C.
I'm assuming, thank you for that clarifier. I am assuming that is going to be the case. One, as a baseline, I'm not sure how it could possibly be worse than what it currently is.
Yes.
Okay.
There is that.
All right. And so, we're really talking about a process that would begin early next year, right? So because we're sitting here in the middle of August, you can say, hey, we did this for the third and fourth quarter of the last year. Here are the results. Here's the data. You start making these asks. Maybe even announce this at your State of the Union speech next. See, the wheels are grinding in the old Deace brain right now. So maybe you announce something like this and make it a centerpiece of your State of the Union next February, right? Hey, based on the results that have happened in Washington, D.C., bang, 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 we are offering federal assistance, and I'll be making direct asks, the president should say. I'll be making direct asks here beginning tomorrow to major cities in America. Do they want federal help with the rising crime in their cities? And maybe you have a chief equity officer, a chief diversity officer instead of a chief that doesn't know what they're doing. He should even use that language.
Sure.
All right. Do you want people just to come in and know that you can arrest your way out of too much crime? That's exactly the point of arresting people, right? And we'll be making those specific, and of course the cities, it's up to you guys whether you want our help or not, but you just completely dangle that out there. You make them all say no. And then the last 6 months of next year is you just shove that commercial right down their throats. Trump, I tried to protect you, but these Democrats hate me more than they want to protect you. And just shove that down their throats for the last 3 months of the campaign next year.
Strategically, this reminds me a lot of my whole abortion rhetoric was saying, okay, fine. The hard cases are your problem. You give me the rest and you can have, even though we don't agree with that, but they
wouldn't take the deal.
They would never take the deal
because they just want to kill all the kids.
Now everybody sees.
Right.
Yes.
Aaron, what do you think?
I think that's brilliant politically. What happens if somebody actually takes them up, though?
Then you go in and do the job.
Oh yeah, with vigor.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And then you claim credit. Look at what. Hey, I had to clean up this city for them. Yeah. See, that's why they won't do it.
These sanctuary cities are already in violation of federal law, anyways.
Correct. That's why they won't do it, because he could claim victory either way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you only do this if it worked in D.C. All right, and if it does work in D.C., and I'm assuming it's going to work. Whether it works enough is the question we have to determine, because again, the baseline can't get worse, right? So it can't get worse. So it's going to work, whether it works enough to try this as a tactic or not. But if you do, you win either way. If they say yes, then you go in, you've got a proof of concept, and you can say, hey, we cleaned up Charlotte, North Carolina for you. Vote Republican in the next midterm. Or if they don't, we tried to clean up Charlotte, North Carolina for you. They wouldn't let us do it. So vote Republican in the next midterm. You're looking to corner them so that you can claim victory either way. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's I think the bigger, maybe more interesting question. So politically, that's a great strategy. The more interesting question is whether morally he should do this anyway. Just disregard the governor, say, hey, you're not upholding your own law. So we're going to send in the National Guard to quell your streets, to clean up your own streets.
Federal help.
Yes.
We're offering federal help. We all know what that means, but we're just going with federal help. Fair? I mean, now Aaron, I think, does raise an intriguing point. I mean, even if you think this is a brilliant political tactic or not, it might be the moral thing to do in some of these cases.
See, yeah.
Are we still permitted to make decisions on that basis, or?
Might. Yeah. I mean, this is the point. Ultimately, at the end of the day, there are political realities. You have to live in the world that it is. And ears to hear, eyes to see. But yeah, morally, of course, sooner or later, as I've said before, New York, maybe it has to get bad enough that the communist Islamic, maybe not normative candidate for mayor has to win for them to finally see and wake up. And the men of New York, there's no able-bodied men that can actually run this, and they don't have to be William F. Buckley, just the 50 random people in the phone book kind of thing. Where are you guys? Maybe it has to get that bad, but sooner or later, our American cities cannot be like this for us to have a civilization to hand off to our children and grandchildren. That's impossible. So morally, of course.
I think what we're looking for, and this goes to something that Brent Buchanan said yesterday when I said, hey, last question for you, Brent. If you could sit down with every Republican who's going to be running for office next year and give them one piece of advice, what it would be? He said, lean into the culture war. And that's a way of saying, lean into the issues that we can control, turn our voters, the people that want to vote for us out. Because we really have no idea. We don't really know. Can Trump fire a Federal Reserve chairman? I think that he can, but that's going to get adjudicated right away, right? What's a judge going to say? What's the Supreme Court going to say? Are they going to defy that one way or the other, right? We don't know. We don't know, right? I mean, the names of people that are getting thrown out there that Trump is considering allegedly, and who knows if this is true or not, but I don't know a single one of those names. So we have many of the impediments to people feeling the microeconomy, the way that the macro stuff seems to be improving, are largely going to be beyond the control of us. And they're happening at a level that is beyond us. So then what can we control that gets people to turn out to vote for us? The kind of conversations we're having right now, right? And I mean, you've got to look for fights to pick so that you can put baby in a corner here, that you can put them in corners where the options for them are not good either way, right? Because it exposes their true motivations here are the deconstruction of our way of life. So you are fleshing out the false objection. You're fleshing out the false branding and messaging. Well, we offered you federal help. Oh, now you guys found something. We finally found something that the federal government isn't supposed to do that you guys are opposed to. And it just so happens to be the one thing that would help your people the most right now in this particular moment. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You want to keep making it look like they're on, because they are. You want to keep making it and exposing, maybe not making it look like, but exposing the fact that they're really on the wrong side of progress. What they call progress is really revolution and deconstruction. More in a moment. All right, back here on the Steve Deace Show, and there is a new movie coming out called Generation COVID. Here's a preview.
Western democracy has been replaced with a biosecurity state.
Bars, restaurants, food courts, gyms, and other indoor and outdoor venues where groups of people congregate should be closed.
I expected it to only be for like 2 weeks and then we get back to school.
At the time, it felt great, and then surely enough, it started to be very worrying.
As officials try to slow the spread of the coronavirus, some states have begun shutting down their entire school systems.
We will be extending our guidelines to slow the spread.
We were told we were just supposed to close schools for a couple weeks to prevent the hospitals from being overwhelmed.
She didn't understand what was going on or why we were not doing our regular activities. Why weren't we going to school?
The teachers got vaccinated and there were immediately other stipulations attached to that and time was running out.
How am I gonna get to college if I don't have a junior year football? I was so upset.
It was everyone. Everyone gave up.
I think he didn't go out of the house at one point for 6 months. He didn't go nowhere. He never even stepped out of the house.
Check.
I had a plan to heal myself and I thought about it every day.
You cannot treat kids like prisoners and expect them to be okay.
Lord, we give you thanks for Kevin's life.
The narrative was, this is something that has to happen in order to keep the kids safe.
The American public got the impression that there was a consensus that schools should be closed, the vaccines should be mandated, and that simply wasn't the truth.
People at the very highest levels of scientific administration, people like Tony Fauci, they make decisions about how all of society is organized.
Fundamental to everything is the safety and the health of the children, of the teachers.
I'm fighting for life. I'm alive here.
Dr. Fauci has been the de facto president of the United States for 2 years.
This is a wartime undertaking.
The memories that we have lost, the experiences that we have lost, the skills that we have lost, and now we have to regain that and go out into the world.
There has to be an honest discussion about what went wrong.
This is something that my generation will not forget. This is also something that my generation will not forgive.
That packs a wallop. Jennifer Sey, our good friend here from XXXY Athletics, as well as the director, Andrew James. They are behind this new film, Generation COVID. They join us now today on The Blaze. Good to see both of you. Jennifer, since you're an old friend, and plus we believe in ladies first around here, we'll start with you. Why does this story have to be told again when much of the country, frankly, just wants to say, that was nuts, we all lost our ever-loving minds, mistakes were made, what happens in COVID stays in COVID, and now we're back to reality, so let's just all move on. What do you say to that?
Well, first of all, we haven't heard from the children that were affected. So, I was very intense on speaking with them directly and hearing from them directly. And we can't move on because there has not been a thorough assessment of what happened. And we are at risk of the same exact thing happening again. I know no one wants to revisit it because practically everybody was complicit in it. Nobody wants to examine their own complicity. But children have been harmed. Families have been harmed, and children continue to suffer. The kids that didn't graduate high school, the kids that dropped out, the kids who are failing, their lives are not back on track. Absenteeism is at an all-time high. Learning loss is at an all-time high. We have a problem. We need to analyze it, assess it. We need to put effort behind fixing it, and we need to make sure it never happens again.
Andrew, what attracted you to this project other than everything Jennifer just said?
I wanted to make something about the pandemic. It was bothering me, everything that was going on. And I met Jen through Twitter and we started talking, and she had this idea of sort of framing it around kids and schools. And so we kept talking and decided to go in that direction, and away we went. And basically because I am concerned that they're going to try something like this again. And so I think we need to have the conversation and talk about what happened, who is impacted, and sort of have a reckoning around this experience that we all we all sort of had our own experience with it, but there was a shared experience, and we need to have a reckoning around that.
I think Andrew, that Jennifer just made a very important point, and it's something we touched on our show before, that I think when we've had other, and, I don't want to draw moral equivalencies to other great, moments of global, moral malfeasance or wickedness, but in most of those other historical instances we all know, or could reference as reference points, those things were largely conducted by a particular vector of the social class. They were overseen by perhaps certain elite aspects of the government or the socio-cultural political system. And so I think once those things were finally confronted and removed, society writ large was okay with a reckoning because their hands weren't on the murder weapon, so to speak, right? In this case, though, I mean, almost no one's walking out of this unscathed. Almost none of us, even those of us, who were among the first to the fight on this, I mean, at first I was like, well, why don't we, instead of shutting the country down, why don't we wear masks? And then then I did the research on, I was suggesting it on my show. Then I did the research on why we didn't wear masks and, the Spanish flu epidemics of the previous century. Oh, they don't work. I mean, I don't know anybody that didn't fall for at least some of the canards of this, because we were literally all blindsided. And I think because this filters down to the molecular level of the cultural water table, it's hard to get the average American who would give us the voice and the leverage to make that happen, to have them want to go back and revisit the fact that, yeah, they told their mom that she had to die alone in the nursing home because MSNBC and frankly even Fox News told them to do that, and they don't want to have to go back and remember that, Andrew.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's really hard for people to revisit what happened because it was traumatic. It was, I think some people might feel a little guilty about their complicitness in what happened. And some people might not want to confront that. But also just because it was hard and a lot of people suffered, it is a challenging thing to discuss and to revisit, especially in the format of a film that is supposed to be entertaining, and that's what movies are, right? And I think the movie is entertaining, as much as it can be. It's interesting. It tells a story. It drives forward. It takes you on a journey, and it's surprising. I think there's a lot you're going to learn from the film that you might not know, or that you may have missed at the time. And so I think that's one value of the film, is that it stands as a sort of historical record of what happened and provides a way back into the experience where we're not trying to preach to people. We're allowing people to sort of go on this journey and relive it, so to speak, through the film, and hopefully make up their own minds about things. I think the film challenges the viewer, but allows them to decide at the end of the day how they feel about everything.
Jennifer, you want to speak? I saw you nodding your head as I was asking Andrew that question. You want to speak to that phenomenon a little?
Yeah. I mean, look, Steve, I can't think, certainly not in my lifetime, there hasn't been a bigger example of something that affected all of us, not just here in the U.S., but in the world at large, to close our eyes and not assess what happened, not assess the damage done and why it happened, is such a grave mistake. We need to assess our own complicity. Look, people came to know me because I did push back against it from day one. And I was very intent, along with Andrew, on inviting people in. We wanted to lay the foundation so you're kind of taken back into what it was like, why we were all so afraid. It was rational, in a sense, to be that afraid at the beginning. We were told everybody was going to die. And so we invite them back to that time and then kind of lay out the facts, because there was other information available. And we want people to be able to go, okay, I did get sucked in, but maybe I won't next time. And if we don't do that kind of self-assessing, we're just going to fall for it all over again. There's signs of it happening now already. And so because this is the biggest event with the biggest impact on the citizens around the world in terms of freedom and education and freedom of speech. And, we touch on all of these issues and the impact to our kids' education. We have to do it, however unpleasant and uncomfortable it is. We absolutely have to do it. Now, the challenge, Steve, for us is, much of the time these assessments come many years after the fact. Right. We're talking a decade, maybe later, 20 years. And we're doing this 2 years, 3 years later. And we actually filmed families in real time when they were sort of in the suffering, and many still are. So it is very raw. And I think there is going to be resistance because it's so fresh and it's so new. And it's not a new generation of journalists and a new generation of parents who, maybe weren't complicit that can say, yeah, we have to examine this. It's the people who are responsible and those of us individuals who are responsible that need to see it to ensure that we never do it again. So I know it's a hard watch, but I think it's just critically important.
I mean, listen, the average German was not personally escorting Jews to the trains, right. Okay? But in this case, right. The average person turned on one another, okay? Turned on our own kids, turned on our own family members. No, if grandma doesn't get the vaccine, she can't ever hug her grandkids like ever again. And that is just something that is really almost unprecedented in microscope, Andrew, in human history. And I think that line in your trailer at the end, brother, where the young man says, our generation is never going to forget, and we're never going to forgive either. Speak to that a little bit, because that is an angle to this, frankly, I have not really thought about, is what will this do to the collective psyche of an entire generation and how they view their neighbor, their country, their institutions, the culture they're inheriting, et cetera?
Yeah, the implications are profound. It's not just about schools were closed or, kids missed prom, kids missed football, which actually is a big deal in and of itself. But it's a lot more than that. The psychological implications of what happened are very far-reaching. Imagine being a 16-year-old kid and being denied these rites of passage that your older brother and older sister got to experience, other family members got to experience. Now you're watching from the sidelines, wondering when it's your shot. When are you going to get a chance to live your dream, pursue the things that you believe in? That's all been taken away. And now you've been told, oh, it doesn't matter because, the COVID is more important. And so I think what that's done is it's taught these kids that they are less important to the adults than maybe they thought.
Wow.
That can be a real head scratcher and maybe hurtful and confusing for kids and for young people who are trying to find their way in the world.
Because the inherited human framework is that the old sacrifice for the young, not the other way around.
That's absolutely right. If I could just jump on to what Andrew was saying, it's not just that we told them those things didn't matter, that have mattered to young people since forever, social interaction. And we did it to teenagers right when they're supposed to be individuating from their parents. Mm-hmm. We told them not only that it didn't matter, but that they were selfish, mm-hmm. that they were jerks if they cared and they were sad and they were depressed. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's unconscionable to me. I mean, how would you feel? And that young man, Garrett, he goes by Bam, sums it up so perfectly with that phrase. And we always knew we wanted to center that when we heard him say it. How could they forget? We used children as human shields long after adults resumed their lives. Kids were just restricted. People like to say online, oh, it was just a few weeks that they were out of school. No, it wasn't. It was a year and a half in blue states that kids were out of school. Half of American public school children were out of school for a year and a half, and another year to 2 years, their schooling was just onerously restricted. They were, standing in weird lines, and they weren't allowed to drink water, and they had masks on, and they couldn't laugh, and they couldn't eat lunch together. I mean, we treated children like toxic waste. It's unconscionable, Steve. Yes, it really is. How are they going to feel about themselves as they go into the world?
All right, I've got about a minute and a half here. So, Jen, let me come back to you. When are people going to be able to see this film?
Well, thanks so much for, getting the word out. The response to the trailer has been great. We've had about 1 million views in just a few days. We don't have distribution yet. To go back to your earlier point, people are a little bit afraid to watch it. That goes for the mainstream streamers as well. Andrew and I both have other films under our belts that have gotten, wide viewership. And so we're going to keep pushing for that. We want people to see this movie. So we may end up distributing on our own, but we're pushing for a large platform to show the film. So we're working on that. The film is very close to done. And, we'll keep you posted. If you visit our website, generationcovidfilm.com, we'll keep everybody posted there as well as on our own Twitter accounts.
All right, generationcovidfilm.com is where you want to go, generationcovidfilm.com. You may or may not know, Jennifer, I have a little experience with distribution. So if I can help, all right, Todd
Thanks.
Has a way to connect the two of us, and I'm happy to do so if I can help, okay?
Thank you so much, Steve. We appreciate it.
You bet. All right, God bless you guys. Take care.
Thank you.
You bet. You think, given guys how much we have talked about this and covered this, and again, we were amongst the first to run into that fire when it started. But even you think, I've heard it all, seen it all, but I really had not considered what now, we talked about denying these rites of passage to our young people, but what do they think about having those things denied? Being told that your entire future of potential may have to be put on hold so that an elderly person who's already lived a full life and already had all the benefits of all the experiences that you may never get to have, all right? You're now there. When it used to be, we said the old sacrificed for the young, you're now going to sacrifice for them. What does that do to a generation? I hadn't even thought about that, frankly, in the terms that they brought that home, but it really hit home with me.
You were raised by the people that you're supposed to be able to trust and count on the most to believe that cowardice should be our default position. That can't go anyplace good. That destroys. And right now, in Aaron's montage today, this girl just now won this case. She already took a bunch of the drugs that she didn't want to take. She wanted to go back to school. She was injured by them. The school districts still said, nope, you can't come back. You've got to take them. She just won that now. But I guarantee you, no one's been fired in that school district, I bet. Not a single one of them. But we don't have to tell this story. It's ridiculous. And quite frankly, listen, Jennifer Sey, I know she'll tell you I was radicalized on transgenderism in this issue, but I'm tired of Jennifer Sey having to do all the heavy lifting on this. For God's sake, can everybody else just get in line and do their part, just a fraction of what that woman has in the last 5 years? Because everything is at stake.
What you accomplish when the old tell the young that their lives really aren't important, that their rites of passage really aren't important, and that you're being selfish for wanting these things in your life, when every single generation from time immemorial, to some degree and in some form or fashion, has enjoyed these things, what you accomplish is taking a sledgehammer to your civilization.
That's exactly right.
That's what you accomplish. Congratulations.
Yep, and you sow permanent disdain on a generational and distrust on a generational basis as well when you do that. Hour 2 is next. Let's play some Buy, Sell, or Hold. Stay tuned. Back here with Hour 2, live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. I'm Steve Deace. He's Todd Erzin. He's Aaron McIntyre. And you are you. And you can let us know what you think about what we think by emailing the show, steve@stevedeace.com. That's DEACE. Like us on Facebook, me, we, and Gab. You can follow me at Steve Deace Show on X, Instagram, and TikTok. Please subscribe to our new YouTube channel, at Deace Show on YouTube. And that's only, though, if you have a fetish for futility, as I clearly do, by continuing to post things on YouTube and asking you to subscribe, even though they'll almost never let you see any of them, apparently. But try it anyway, right? Because I know you've got all kinds of free time. You've got the time. Just go on our YouTube channel, subscribe at Deace Show, maybe do it a few times an hour. You'll probably have to, because when you go back, you'll see you're unsubscribed. That happens a lot. It's not that I'm bitter. That I'm very bitter. Is it showing? Am I doing a good job of hiding it?
You wear bitterness well.
Do I?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Also, if give us all the feedback you want on the podcast. For whatever reason, Apple does not hate me as much as Google does, apparently. So you guys hit subscribe, or if you are on Apple iTunes, follow. And that's how you'll know for sure that every time we do a new episode, it's right there in your feed, for sure. every single time. And then you can also leave us a 5-star review. Tens of thousands of you have. Thank you for each and every one of those. Each and every one of them are appreciated. We also appreciate Jennifer Sey and what she's got going on over at XXXY Sports Apparel. You see Todd rep the brand on the show every so often here on the program. And it's not just cool clothes, comfy clothes. It is, but it's also clothes with a message. And the brand does the talking for free speech and biological reality. Everything from logo tees, premium workout clothes, including leggings. I know Todd's a big fan of the moisture wicking tops. Again, Todd, you were explaining to me what those were. What are they again?
That conversation never happened.
I know. I just like doing that to you every now and then because I just... Because you make it so awkward that I really enjoy it. I don't know if do you think the audience enjoys when I do that, Aaron? Because I really enjoy it.
Who among us right now is wearing pastels?
I don't really care if the audience enjoys it. I enjoy it.
Because you do? Yes. That's a good comeback. Who's the one wearing the pastels today? Very true. You got me on that one. That's a good zinger, brother. It's not even Friday yet. Look at you. Delivering 2 days early. Wow, you get a good shave in and... It's just like you've been reborn. So props to you. You did get a good jab in there. All right. So tennis dresses, skirts, shorts, and more. All right. You can also get 20% off if you enter the promo code Blaze20. Blaze20 for 20% off when you go to thetruthfits.com. Available only at thetruthfits.com. Thetruthfits.com. Use the code Blaze20 for 20% off at thetruthfits.com. And with that, it is time for some buy, sell, or hold. We'll get through as many of your submissions as we possibly can in this half hour. What remains will be held over for our subscribers in today's overtime at blazetv.com/Deace. Go there, subscribe today. Get a discount. No topic is off limits. Todd and I have not seen the topics we're about to address. Aaron has. All right, he has curated your hundreds of submissions that you have submitted. You are, Todd and I should say, permitted to buy. We are permitted to sell. We're also permitted to hold. All right. We also are permitted to hold. But if you hold, then because of your severe violation of the dude code, you have to be taught by Lindsey Graham what moisture wicking is. Todd, your thoughts?
Definite no.
Definite no?
Definite.
All right. Let's fire away, Aaron.
We'll begin with Deace in Memes, who says, gerrymandering your mom is just another way of saying you arranged for your mom to marry some dude named Jerry.
That's pretty good. I like that, but no. It means do everything it takes to win that the good Lord says we can't do. And that would not be one of them. All right, so I do it with impunity. Although I buy on the snarkiness, but I sell on its accuracy. So,
you know what he said.
Okay.
Next, we go to Bob, who says Kexi Cookies better than Sydney Sweeney.
I think I have to answer buy on this for multiple reasons, including my own survival.
Coattails.
Yes, buy. Yeah.
Check. Coattails.
Yes.
Check.
Next, we go to Jawa Jim, who says prison for the coup planners and participants is a fool's errand, especially considering the likely venue. However, indictments and trials will impose at least some cost on the miscreants and should be pursued early and often. So Jawa Jin says, even if you can't get them in prison, it's worth it just to use the process as punishment. Buy, sell, or hold.
I would buy that the punishment or the process is the punishment. They've been doing this to us. I mean, we need to create this deterrent of mutually assured destruction. Let's see how many, $2,000 an hour attorneys y'all can afford. Okay? How you like them apples. But I would also add, now, we, of course, have not seen any follow-up to this, but the speculation that we heard a week ago of having indictments come down in Florida, where the Mar-a-Lago raid took place, I find to be pretty ingenious if we go down that road. But even if you wanted to do this in Northern Virginia or D.C., Jawa would be correct. It is a spectacle beyond just getting a conviction. I mean, one of the most important Supreme Court cases in U.S. history for political outcomes was the Dred Scott decision. We lost that case, but losing that case in full view was one of the key igniters of the abolitionist movement at the time. So I think sunlight to cockroaches can be its own reward. So I'll buy that.
I agree with all that, but I'm just going to sell based on the fool's errand. Are our standards are just so low as a default. No, there needs to be consequences. You cannot continue, maybe in your lifetime, but again, there's going to be nothing to hand off to your children or your grandchildren if you accept that as a default.
Next is Live Free, who says the revelations that have emerged from the declassified documents, I think in the Russiagate case, can be summed up very simply by Dennis Green's "They are who we thought they were."
Classic post-game rant. All right. Classic post-game rant. But yes is the answer. 100%. Yes. And there have to be consequences, or it has to be shown that we attempted, maybe is a better way of putting it. We attempted to impose consequences. We tried to do so. That has to be shown.
Nobody asked, but I'm going to volunteer it anyway. I think of myself as having a pretty good BS meter for things that just perfectly fit into whatever narrative, that whatever political perspective you have. I have a pretty sensitive BS-o-meter for things that perfectly fit into a chosen narrative. I don't have that with this, even though it's fitting in perfectly. And I think it's because it's such a long-standing story and so many things have already been fleshed out. But those BS-o-meters are not going off on this story with the classified docs that have been declassified. Colton is next, who says, as a Christian, I absolutely believe all sin can be forgiven, but some sins have different consequences than others. And wanting your children to marry a spouse that has been clean and pure their whole life and was raised in Christian homes is actually a good thing, as opposed to marrying somebody who came to Christ after having 20-plus sexual partners. So this was a big debate over the weekend online amongst Christians on X. Buy-seller hold Colton's submission.
Well, what Colton is articulating is actually not the debate that was happening online. The debate that was happening online was your son would be better off marrying a fully redeemed former OnlyFans model who had the demonstrated fruit of grace and mercy and regeneration and rebirth in her life than some virginal harpy who might have more Bible verses memorized and never let a man touch her, but has been completely worked over by a lot of the spirit of the age and in other ways that makes her the kind of wife that Proverbs warns about. It's better to live on a roof rather than be married to that. That was essentially the online debate. What Colton is offering is way more nuanced than that online debate. And the reason why it's important to note that is because the way that question was framed forced people to reveal whether they really believe in God's grace or not. Because in no other context other than the previous woman was sexually lascivious in her previous pre-born-again life would any man want the latter for a wife over the former, correct? If you didn't know, if you didn't know anything about their sexual histories and just watched the way they live their lives and their personas, all right, which woman would the other person would a guy want to be married to? The former, 27 times out of 10. So the point was to challenge, are you just a moral prude? Not to mention how many of the guys that are like, that's a scarlet woman I could never forgive, are, playing the 5-knuckle chuckle tonight, after everybody goes to bed online. You see what I'm saying? That's what made that post by Protestia so brilliant, is it exposed a false choice, a false equivalency, and made a lot of people basically drop trow and show their backsides. Okay? What Colton is arguing is a way more nuanced view, which I don't disagree with any of that. Of course, the chances are, the less sexual baggage of the sexual revolution you come into a marriage with, odds are that marriage will be successful is higher.
Yes.
Not disputing that. As someone that completely succumbed to the sexual revolution and is married to somebody who completely succumbed to the sexual revolution, and we met each other via the process of succumbing to the sexual revolution. My wife sits there. She's here. My wife 3 days a week keeps office hours. And many of her appointments, in fact, today would be one of them, and many of her appointments are with people who allowed succumbing to the sexual revolution and the baggage that went with that into their ongoing marriage and family lives. So as a one-to-one, Colton is correct. But that is actually not what the point that Protestia was making. What Protestia was
doing, I meant was that this was the debate that some people were trying to have.
Yes.
However you want. But I did see what Colton pointed out there being debated.
Yeah, but of course that would be the best course of action if it's attainable. Sure. But the reality also is that's not going to be really attainable in much of the era in which we live. All right? And so, you know, if that's your non-negotiable, you get to do that. But then you also maybe need to be prepared for a life of singleness. And then make sure you're holding on to your own chastity in that singleness, like you want to hold a generation of young women to that you've never met.
I thought that article was brilliant. Listen, as a Catholic, I've got some issues with Protestia and how it goes about certain things, but I do think that column was brilliant. And what I found particularly fascinating is that it both directly and I think indirectly held accountable its own tribe, because its own tribe very much no mediator between God and man. Atonement is here now.
And now they don't want to acknowledge the actual atonement.
And yet yes. Here it is with a particular sin. And all of a sudden, there's all kinds of mediators saying,
yes.
well, I don't know about that one.
Exactly.
You played yourself.
Exactly. 100%.
Next, we go to Micah, who says 90% of the American population is unable to name one WNBA team.
It really comes down to how much of the Gen Pop do you think know what team Caitlin Clark plays for? That's really what you're asking. That's another way of that's essentially what he's asking, right? Yes. Do you think more than 10% of Americans know what a WNBA team? Because that's the number. Wouldn't that be the number? You said 90, right, Aaron?
Yeah,
yes.
Okay, so we're really asking then, do you think 10% of the general American population knows
the Indiana Fever?
Knows that Caitlin Clark plays for the Indiana Fever?
I say yes.
Do you think 20% know?
Yes.
You would say yes. Okay, what about you?
I think...
Doc?
Starting to get towards the ceiling, but I think...
Yeah, 20%. I think I agree. That's exactly the way...
30%?
No.
Okay.
I think over 25% might be asking too much.
Okay, then I'll go with you guys. I'll buy on that then. But the premise he's asserting, maybe he's taking his premise too far, but the premise in and of itself is solid. Yeah.
Next, we go to Alien in My Own Nation, who says Todd will never admit that he's totally consumed with his sports bro mentality and can think of nothing else. So consumed that, in fact, he goes 18 months, even 2 full years, without getting his hair cut.
I own you, don't I? You just spend all day long thinking about me and how I'm right over the target of your soul. I see you.
I think he was joking, but whatever.
I see you. I know it's substitutionary. I mean, I've got it multiple times today because they're just vomiting out, it's almost here, my boyfriend is back. It's nonstop, and then I just point out you're barely a man. You realize that. How dare you say that to me? It's endless.
Can you wave your hands around like that, Samir?
Aaron didn't have the still frame ready yet. All right, could you just do that one more time? Do you mind?
Did you see this video going around of this guy at a game, and his girlfriend is having a medical emergency, and they're taking her away, and he won't go with her. I'm watching the game. I'm right about this.
What game was this?
I don't know. It doesn't matter. I'm always there for the team.
They need me.
They think that. They're mad when the team does not care as much as they do. That's sports bro. You're an idol worshiper.
When I was a little kid, there was this very obscure movie, maybe 3 people in America remember, called Tiger Town, with Roy Scheider. Remember Roy Scheider?
I remember Roy Scheider.
Very underrated actor of the late 70s to mid 80s.
Well, Jaws.
Exactly. Yeah. And Roy played a aging slugger for my Detroit Tigers. And there was some connection where if this little kid watched the game, Roy had a big hit or a home run. And if he didn't, the kid didn't, or Roy didn't, right? And I mean, I was completely obsessed with this idea as a little kid because
you're borderline still obsessed with it now. To be frank, let's not lie.
Being Frank or being Laura?
Let's be honest.
Inside joke, which you could be a part of if you subscribe to Blaze TV.
I don't do this anymore, but Amy can tell you stories of when we first got married. This is 30 years ago. if she went to get lunch and Michigan started playing bad, I'd be like, shouldn't have left. That changed the whole thing. All right. I mean, I'd be convinced that if it was 3rd and long and if I changed the channel, we'd get a stop. But if I watched, we'd give up a first down.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that I can't even see Aaron anymore. It's even better now that it's just disembodied voices. And it's, wow. That's going to be God to all of us someday. Just,
wow.
That's your, yeah, that's what you've got. This is what your excuse? Sports
game,
bro? Wow.
That game that you were, if it is true.
God's like, I knew you were going to say that. And even though I knew you were going to say that, I'm still like, wow, you did it. Yeah, yes. Yeah. I'm sorry.
That was a Tampa Bay Buccaneers preseason game.
All right, listen. I some of the sports bro stuff I think does go too far, even though I agree with the premise of it. But I have to say, if now you can't depart a preseason game that doesn't count in the standings, then at that point I think I should just tell Todd to just swing away. It's just.
Yeah, if that characterization,
okay.
Videos can be characterized any which way. If that's a true characterization,
not that the Super Bowl is a good excuse either. Okay, but my point is, if the degeneracy is so to the point that a game that does not even count, still you are that invested, then I think at this point, at this point, Todd, just I'm Mel Gibson, you're Joaquin Phoenix, and just swing away. Okay,
we have to swing away before that. That's how it gets to that point. None of it goes too far. This is idol worship.
Can I offer a suggestion for buy, sell, or hold? Can I do an offering? I don't think I've ever done that before. Do you mind real quick, Aaron? Just really quick.
Yeah.
All right, this just showed up in my feed. So there's this account in my feed. It's called Britta, or No Soup for Knowles. I think that's probably a reference to Michael Knowles, maybe? Okay.
I've seen this account.
All right. She is responding to this interview that Tucker did yesterday with this mustache lady claiming to be a Gaza Christian. You see Todd's story.
Oh, yeah.
That's what she was. I'm not, what?
I'm not arguing.
She was. I wasn't trying to, that's what she was. All right. She was a mustache lady claiming to be a nun, a Gaza Christian nun. I think she's like related to George Stephanopoulos or something. Okay.
What?
All right.
Are we just playing Mad Libs at this point?
Aaron off camera again.
And she sat next to me on my last flight. Just started at me. Anyway. See what happens when you literally put mustache ladies on your show. Just throws everything off. All right. She just posted this in my feed, or maybe actually she posted it 11 hours ago. It just showed up in my For You feed. Quote, I have tried to have an open mind, but I think I can say with certainty now that a nun with a mustache who defends Hamas and makes excuses for Muslim persecution of Christians while pretending that Israel is the greater threat to Christianity is not actually a godly woman. Now, I've not seen the interview at all. I just saw the visual of the woman. Okay. In fact, he just had on my good buddy Jeremiah Johnston about the Shroud of Turin. That's like next to my list of things I'm going to go back and watch. Okay. But what do you get? Buy or sell or hold? Just this as a rubric, as a framework of assessing someone's credibility. What do you think? This is just as a general rule.
Is that a fair characterization of what this woman was saying? Well, I need to know what she said before I can...
Forget this particular... Just if this existed... In a vacuum. If this existed, would you find that to be trustworthy or not?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, probably not.
Probably not.
Okay. All right, let's go back to Micah. D.C. will become a state before birthright citizenship is abolished.
I will sell. I think that... what the forthcoming generations are prepared to do is disrupt a lot of paradigms that our generation and our parents' generation, the boomers, kind of just took for granted were going to stay in place forever. I don't think that's how this is going to play out, actually. So I will sell.
I'll sell
that. Yeah.
Next, we go to Gen X Kid, who says if there are no arrests during the Trump administration for past wrongdoing, he, his family, and all of his acolytes will be charged and imprisoned once he leaves office.
I could see that being true to some degree. I mean, they already tried to do it after the last time. So I'll buy. Yeah, I could see it to some degree, sure.
Yeah.
Tack for IDAG. Top 5 reasons football is gay for my spirit animal, Todd. Number 5, it makes biggest fans weak and disinterested.
For sure. That's quantifiable. It's objectively true.
Number 4, the Bears. Really? I don't know what that's about.
Oh, I'll buy that one.
Number 3, Travis Kelce's shirtless photo spread.
I was not aware of a Travis Kelce shirtless photo spread. So I kind of feel like, what do you do with your nights there, Tack?
Number 2, the uniforms are literally crop tops and tights.
Well, I mean, that's to avoid people more injury. I mean, they're tackling each other, right? If you got a lot of dangling clothes and other items out there, that actually increases the odds of injury.
Jiu-jitsu here.
Yeah. Okay.
Number 1, the Minnesota Vikings' new male cheerleaders.
That's your best one right there.
Number 1 and 5 are the
one and your bookends are the best ones. The middle ones were kind of like so. But go leave your best material. The bookends were the best ones for sure. You bet.
Andrew is next. Once saved, always saved makes Christians who believe it way too comfortable of being pathetic and uninvolved.
I'm going to sell because.
Couldn't you make an inverse argument of this? You're way too paranoid.
You could. But also, I mean, almost every, not all, because there are some Protestant movements that believe you can lose your salvation. But if you look at the ones that were the most prevalent coming out of the Reformation, they were all covenant theology ones that don't believe that. And they rebuilt Western civilization. So I do think if you wanted to, correlation is not always causation. I do think if you wanted to say, the broad acceptance of dispensationalism encouraged a level of complacency since it taught that the world gets worse no matter what we do. I'd be more willing to buy some of that. But on this one, I mean, history just shows that's not particularly true.
And there's, I mean, post-mill, mill don't actually mean the inverse, don't automatically mean the inverse reaction is true as well. You could be post-mill or mill and believe that since I believe that things keep getting better and better, that the world keeps going further and further towards Christ. Well, what do I need to do anything? There are more nuances in this, but just the inverse can be true as well.
I mean, most of the people that, almost everybody that got on the Mayflower believed you could not lose your salvation. They were Puritans. I mean, so I think it's more complicated than that. So I will sell.
Yeah, I agree with that last part completely. It is more complicated, and it's
meaning. Let's quantify this since there are influences in what things mean in different eras in a culture, to how the people that emanate from that era maybe receive those things, okay? So if you were in an era, for example, of exploration, so the Puritans lived at a time of Magellan, Columbus, okay? They lived in a time of great exploration, all right? We're post-Enlightenment, okay? So human flourishing is happening in other places of the globe, okay? So to be told that you cannot lose your salvation would have been, to their cultural default mechanism, a point of confidence. It would have been, you know what? You're right. So I might as well risk it all on this rickety boat called the Mayflower, because even if I have a terrible argument, even if we're halfway on this voyage and my wife and I have a terrible argument, I yell at her and then I have a heart attack, the Lord is calling me home. You see what I'm saying? They lived in a different age. And so how they absorbed these things through the cultural lens of their era or times was different than ours. In their era, they were looking for reasons to take chances. In our era, we're looking for reasons not to. We're looking for reasons to stay home. We're looking for reasons not to risk things. And so I just think it's more complicated than that.
That's everything you just said is exactly right, though, which is why I'm so stubborn about the previous question we just had.
Correct.
It's because whether you believe right now, once saved, always saved, or you are Catholic and don't believe that, both of you end up on a weekend becoming idolatrous football sluts and are way are way
That's
more.
the name of my fantasy team.
Steve, you made my
idolatrous
point in a different way. And you know damn well that moves you emotionally way more than whatever your version of your faith is. That's why this has to be dealt with. It's not overdone. Steve's exactly right. Our differences there almost become immaterial because we both really have a different God.
I mean, you probably would look around your parish on Sunday and see a lot of people that believe they could lose their salvation at any moment, and yet you probably look at them and saying, "So why are you just sitting there and just letting stuff happen to you?" Right? Exactly. Yeah.
All right. Next.
By the way, write that down.
Idolatrous football
In fact, Aaron, go to whois.com and see if idolatrousfootballsluts.com has been taken yet.
I do not want to get...
Just go look at my feed.
I don't want to get a call from our IT department.
I'm not making this up. It's all documented.
That is seriously a phenomenal garage band name. Idolatrous Football Sluts. And now to the stage.
We have a late breaking submission from Josh.
Okay.
Buy, sell, or hold. The fact I can name 3 WNBA teams is an automatic man card violation.
Buy. Unless you have, well, caveat. Do you have a daughter playing in the league? Okay. Maybe I'll even grant goddaughter, niece. All right. Do you have a direct, relative person of interest in your life playing in the league? You are granted nomine patre. You're granted a dispensation if that is true, right? Barring that, though, then this would be a buy. Yes.
I think you're being too hard on them. I've got to sell. I mean, the green dildos are landing somewhere, and you just want to know. You know what? That's your second one. That is your second dispensation. You just are completely fascinated by, where these green dildos are coming from. I mean, is it like locusts? Do we need to prepare in a certain way?
Things I never thought I'd ever say.
I think the WNBA needs to partner with the nation of Israel to develop an iron dome or something for their courts.
Things I never ever thought I'd ever have to discuss or have some serious cultural commentary or discussion about.
That league it's amazing.
It is. In
less than a year, your branding went from Caitlin Clark to green dildos.
Yep.
It's just phenomenal.
Yep. End stage feminism.
End stage.
John, one more quickly. John Roberts will do everything he can to prevent the overturning of Obergefell. If it looks like he can't stop it, a mysterious leak will manifest again. Only this time, we will find out who the offender is.
If you won't find out who the offender is, so if I have to buy the whole thing, then I'll sell. But the rest of it, I could buy for sure. Up until that point.
Agreed.
Yeah. Because you didn't find out the last time that Roberts allegedly leaked the Dobbs decision. Allegedly, of course. All right, when we come back, Daniel Horowitz is going to join us, allegedly. Stay tuned. All right, back here on the Steve Deace Show. Hey, if you are struggling to get a good night's sleep, especially if you are putting in the midnight oil, man, and the amount of time we have to look at our screens, even if we're not being idolatrous football sluts, all right? The amount of time we actually have to look at our screens, you can get your brain wired, tough to sleep, maybe it's stress. You know what? I think I have a solution for you. I mean, for me, that's when I found Beam Dream Powder. Beam is proudly founded here in America and run by people who share our values like hard work, integrity, delivering results. It's a healthy nighttime blend that is packed with science-backed ingredients shown to improve sleep so that you can wake up refreshed, ready to take on the day. And when you find Dream, everything's going to change. You're going to start sleeping through the night without tossing and turning. For me, I finally found a way not to wake up twice and pee every night. Drink my Beam. That's the trick. And you're going to wake up energized, not groggy. It's a game changer, folks. So here's the deal. Beam is giving you guys the ultimate Patriot discount of up to 40% off right now. If you want to try their best-selling Dream hot cocoa powder, don't worry about a bunch of carbs and sugars. It's not loaded with that, okay? You can get up to 40% off for a limited time if you go to shopbeam.com/Steve and use the code Steve at checkout. Shop Beam, B-E-A-M as in Mary, B STEAM as in Mary. Shopbeam.com/Steve. Use the code Steve at checkout for 40% off, and you'll sleep better, wake up stronger, show up ready for your family, your work, and your country, because when you're well rested, you're unstoppable. And we need more people in the country just like that. And we need you to be like that. Shopbeam.com/Steve. Use the code Steve. Let's bring in the weekly prophet of woe and lamentation himself, Daniel Horowitz, who has stored up some extra spite for us this week because he's gone next week on vacation. Good to see you again, my friend. So yesterday, we spent about 30 minutes with Brent Buchanan, one of the top pollsters for the Trump administration, and he has polled for Trump's 3 presidential campaigns. And I found a lot of what he said to be really fascinating. And a couple things he said, though, I thought in terms of data, quantified some of the issues that you raise. For example, when I asked him at the end, and I had no idea what his answer was going to be, and I asked him at the end, hey, if you could speak to every Republican who's going to be on the ballot next year, what would you say? What would you advise them to do? And if you went and listened to that and heard what he had to say, he goes, lean into the culture war issues. Which, I mean, guys like you and I have been saying this most of our careers, but we've been told we're wrong, and all anybody really cares about, you can actually just rape their own children. If the jobs and the economy are good, they don't care. I found that to be absolutely fascinating coming, because he's kind of, I mean, listen, Trump's the president. He's the establishment now in some respects, right? He's calling the shots now. So I don't mean this in the traditional pejorative of establishment, but Brent is kind of, he was with Trump in 2015 trying to overthrow the establishment. It worked. So they're kind of an establishment now. And so to have like the mainstream pollster of the White House come out and say, yeah, we got to really dig into these culture war issues is not what we are really typically used to hearing. I want to get your reaction to that.
So first, Steve, I would just say the culture war has shifted. We've lost so much ground that it's like, okay, don't have male cheerleaders. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But of course, we won't talk about women in men's spaces like women in combat, whereas in the 90s we did. So it's all relative, I would say. It's just a measure of how demonic the left has become. It's not necessarily that the established Republican Party has moved to the right. It's that the battle space has moved so far into demonic territory that even establishment people can no longer ignore it. So that's with regard to the cultural stuff. I think the impression I got, what I didn't watch all of it, but the beginning of it, and I do want to watch the rest of it. He obviously echoes my sentiment that the Fox hopium immediately in the wake of the election, that somehow we permanently created realignments and won younger voters for a generation. That wasn't true. It was a shotgun relationship. Everything was going bad under Biden. They bungled the handoff to Harris with a goofy candidate, and the economy and affordability is horrible. It was just horrible. And then nothing else was going right in the world. The border, unlike under Obama, there was no Democrat you could even ask and say, hey, do you like what's going on? So it was a unique set of circumstances. And even then, Republicans won the smallest House majority that has accompanied a trifecta ever. Mm-hmm. So now you turn around and now you own all of that. And, as you well know, I believe it was a mistake for Trump to own the economy and do the sorts of spend his capital on the things he did. And the message the point is, rather than saying, let's be patient, Biden really put us in a hole. We got to get the inflation down. Instead, the economy is humming. There's no inflation. We're good. That's going to be a problem. So I think all that is left to do is to try to prime the pump on some of the other successful issues like the woke DEI transgender agenda. I would also add, I don't know if he brought this up, but this week a new issue broke out with the whole fight over DC. I do think crime is always a good issue.
We were talking about this at the top of the show, and I suggested that give DC a few months to show, because it can't get worse. It's going to get better. It's just a matter of how markedly better it actually is. Okay. But if it's markedly better, maybe you roll out, if you're Trump next year at the State of the Union with, and here's my new proposal. We offer, quote, federal help to a bunch of blue cities around the country, particularly in swing states, okay, with swing districts. All right. And they're all going to say no and then use that as a cudgel against them in the next, or a hammer against them in the next election. I kind of suggested this could be part of an overall strategy. What are your thoughts on that? Not just good policy.
No, it's absolutely true. I mean, I had a guest on today talking about the irony of how you have a growing litany of prosecutors in places like California, LA, that are undoing service prosecutor policies, even in deep blue places, because they're so unpopular. Yet in red states, you still have Right on Crime and the Koch funded, by the way, Soros funded as well, so-called right-leaning groups that are pushing in legislatures more jailbreak. I mean, DeSantis had to actually veto bills that try to have more expungement and sealing of records of juveniles, the core, by the way, of what's going on with the juvenile hijacking or carjacking and aggravated assault bubble in D.C. So this was always an issue that was 80-20, 90-10 at the public level. But then the last 10 years or so, at the elite conservative level, it's been taken over the other way. It's very bizarre. So I think Trump's at a crossroads on this. He could really try to reclaim Reagan's momentum on the crime issue. That's always a good issue. But with that said, I will say we do have to keep in mind, people forget, the sitting president has always lost the Congress or the House in the midterms dating back to 1932, with the exception of Bush and 9/11. You know, that was an anomaly. But Biden lost it. Trump lost it. Obama lost it his first go around. Clinton lost it his first go around in 94. HW and Reagan never had it to begin with to lose. But the point is, the average loss for the president's party in the first midterm is 28 seats. So keep in mind that even if Republicans successfully navigate the judicial issue and they're able to net an extra 10 seats out of redistricting, even an average economy, that's really not going to be enough. You look at the trajectory of this sort of stagflation. Yeah, I get it. We have 4% unemployment and whatever GDP growth, but nobody feels that or believes it. So I'm all into the culture war, and you can never go wrong with that. But I still do believe that the dominant factor ingredient in Trump's election last year was the economy.
All right, before we continue on with Daniel, a couple of questions for you from our friends over at Constitution Wealth. Are you unknowingly funding the destruction of your own value system with the investments that you make? And then number two, are you sure that your hard-earned investment dollars are not being used to go against what you just voted for in the last election? If you think you can answer yes to one, and unfortunately both of those, then you need to contact our friends over at Constitution Wealth. They can help you take control of your future and the future of America. They're an investment firm made up of professionals who share your values. All right. They can help you screen your investments for your values as well. So get started today by visiting their website. Get a free consultation at constitutionwealth.com/blaze. Again, get a free consultation today at constitutionwealth.com/blaze. Get started with that today at constitutionwealth.com/blaze. And please remember that Constitution Wealth is a registered investment advisor. You should review their disclosures at constitutionwealth.com to understand their services and fees. All investing does involve risk, including the risk of loss. I am a client of the firm. This is a paid endorsement, but my opinions are my own. What did you think also, back to Daniel Horowitz here, Daniel, what did you think about Brent agreeing with me that he was concerned we could lose a lot of the gains we had with young men in this last election if they fail to see consequences to a lot of the various elements in the, because they kind of saw Trump, according to his analysis, as an extension of themselves. Hey, the same people that weaponized all these institutions against me and my generation are now doing it against him, right? Okay. And so if that common weaponization does not lead to accountability, his concern is what I've been articulating, not that we're necessarily going to lose, the bro dude audience to Democrats and Kamala Harris and Pete Buttigieg. We'll just lose them. They'll just drop out. We'll lose them to something even worse than Democrats, despair. They'll just figure the system doesn't work for me, and then who knows where that despair gets channeled later on, and usually not great places. But he seemed to agree with that. What did you think?
No, absolutely. Again, this is where all the permanent majority people were wrong. The new generation didn't suddenly become conservative, right-wing, nationalist, populist, whatever you want to say. They dramatically wanted change. But also to your point, and this gets back to the economy, more so than the older generation, which still has a residual nirvana sort of trust for institutions to a certain extent. They believe everything is rigged against them because the economy that they're born into and that they're trying to find employment and upward mobility and purchase a house in is rigged. It's a generational rigging. So I think that does reverberate with the Epstein stuff, and everything is a two-tiered system. So I do think that resonates, and they did vote for that dramatic change. And if they don't see it, it's not a matter of a coherent ideology. Well, in this election, you're going to swing really far right. So then maybe next election, okay, you could go 1-2 tranches less right. No, you're saying you might either fall off the face of the earth or you'll go far left. And it goes around in a circle. A lot of these same people could turn around and vote for that guy in New York City as mayor because they feel desperation. So anyone saying, oh, prices are high and things are unfair, they'll vacillate between socialism, nationalism, conservatism, fascism, whatever it is. That's what I see in this young generation. It's extremely volatile, undefined, is facing a social and economic future that's increasingly bleak and has fewer options. So I think again, this is why it is such a big mistake to try to not just own the economy just 6 months in, but even say it's doing great. It's just that is never going to do well with those people.
All right. So let's get to the final question. I've got about 2 minutes for you. His biggest concern was the enthusiasm gap between Republican voters and Democratic voters. Now, some of that, as you point out, is traditional in these midterm cycles after you win a presidential. So some of that is just baked into the formula of how the ebbs and flows of how we do campaigns in America. But what are Republicans doing, in your view, to contribute to that they could realistically stop doing?
Yeah, so I mean, typically it's always easier to be the negative, and we've seen that the last number of decades. It switches back and forth. But at least you have to rally your troops affirmatively behind something. They're stalling A, B, and C. We're going to get this done. Give them a vision. Give them some sort of imagination. Simply butt the Democrats, or they'll spend 2 years impeaching Trump. That's not going to galvanize anyone behind anything. And I think an early warning sign is Virginia. It was always somewhat competitive. I never remember it being to the point where it's so not competitive, it's so a given that Democrats will win the governorship and the legislature that it's just not even news. And this is a big problem because typically since 1994, the way these midterms have worked is that the ruling party comes in, they have a period of goodwill for 6 to 12 months. It starts ebbing, they start getting unpopular, and then that unpopularity kind of peaks at the midterms. And then on the other side of it, when it turns to presidential, it becomes about personalities. So it evens out a little bit more. And then depending on which time, sometimes the incumbent party could win it back closely or lose it closely. What I'm concerned about is how quickly Republicans got to the point where they got crushed in every special election, which speaks to the enthusiasm gap. And then now what we're seeing with Virginia, again, that really portends something very bad for the midterms. And I'm not seeing the galvanizing issue.
All right. That's what they need then. Thank you, Daniel. Good to see you as always. Enjoy your vacation, man. Well earned.
Looking forward.
Yep, we'll see you in a couple weeks. All right, guys, final thoughts. What did you think of the conversation we just had with Daniel?
What an amazing time, because I think when he says, I'm not seeing the galvanizing issue, there's just a reality to the fact that there's like, in my mind, there's 10 to choose from. But the fickleness of the American public, how quickly they move on, their short attention spans, can't even be bothered, football season's here. He's not wrong to say, like, I can't guarantee you one right now people will care about. That makes this work particularly challenging right now because we're dealing with multiple existential topics and still somehow people can't be made to care.
Aaron?
Yeah, I mean, Daniel sounds like me yesterday talking about the Iowa gubernatorial race. And these two things can be true at the same time. Even in our age of social media, the White House's bully pulpit still is consequential. I do believe that.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing, however, is just organic. There does, on some level, have to be something organic that you can't plan for, that you just can't conjure out of thin air, that you can't summon. Something organic has to happen between now and I would say probably February, March, April of next year. That is going to be an inflection point in the two visions of what to do as Americans in the future. Nobody knows what that is. So between something that is artificial, like using the bully pulpit to pick an issue, whether it's crime or anything else, and something organic happening in the near future, we've got to find our inflection point. Got to find, as Daniel Horowitz called it, the galvanizing issue.
Well said. We're going to stick around, finish buy, sell, or hold for subscribers in the overtime. For the rest of you, we'll see you tomorrow, noon to 2 Eastern, right after Glenn Beck, right here on Blaze TV. Until then, Romans 8:28.